Discipline is not something you're born with. It's not a gift handed down by the lucky few. It's a muscle, and just like any other muscle in your body, it can be trained, stretched, broken down, and rebuilt stronger than before. Most people wait for motivation. They wait for the perfect time. They wait until they feel ready. But waiting is the enemy. If you wait until you feel like it, you'll never do it. Discipline is the art of acting regardless of how you feel in the moment. Your brain is not your master. It is your servant. And if you don't train it, it will control you with impulses, cravings, and excuses. Think about it. How many times has your mind told you, "I'll do it tomorrow. I'll start Monday. I'll try later"? That's not discipline. That's the voice of comfort trying to seduce you back into mediocrity. Discipline is the voice that says, "I'll do it now. I'll push. I'll show up. I'll get it done." Training your brain for discipline starts with rituals. Small, simple actions done consistently. Wake up and do the hard thing first. Don't negotiate with your mind. Don't give yourself time to bargain. The moment you hesitate, you lose momentum. You train discipline by teaching your brain, "When I decide, I execute." Period. And here's the truth. Your brain craves certainty and patterns. When you create a standard, when you say, "This is who I am now, this is what I do every day," your brain rewires itself to follow that command. Every time you resist temptation, every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you push through discomfort, you are literally rewiring your nervous system for strength. You are building a new identity, the identity of someone who doesn't quit, who doesn't wait, who doesn't rely on moods or feelings. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is freedom. Freedom from being controlled by impulses, freedom from being a prisoner of your excuses, freedom from regret. You don't discipline yourself because life is easy. You discipline yourself because life will test you. Discipline is the bridge between desire and achievement, between potential and performance. So how do you train your brain? You decide who you want to be, not someday, not in the future, right now. You don't say, "I want discipline." You say, "I am disciplined." Identity drives behavior. When your identity shifts, your actions follow. If you see yourself as lazy, you'll act lazy. If you see yourself as powerful, consistent, relentless, you'll live that out every single day. And here's the kicker: discipline compounds. The same way money compounds in the bank, discipline compounds in your life. One discipline choice leads to another. You show up to the gym once, then you show up again, then you start eating clean, then you start waking up early, then you start attacking your goals with fire. One act of discipline plants the seed for the next. Before long, your brain isn't fighting you anymore, it's working for you. Stop telling yourself you can't. Stop waiting for motivation. Train your brain like you train your body. Build the muscle of discipline, rewire the patterns of hesitation and excuses, replace them with rituals, commitments, and action. Your brain will follow the commands you give it, but only if you're strong enough to lead. Because in the end, the world doesn't reward intention. It rewards execution. And discipline is the power that turns execution into greatness. Discipline is not something you inherit through genetics or some special talent. It is a trained muscle that can be developed, stretched, and strengthened over time. Just like lifting weights in the gym builds your body, every small act of self-control builds the muscle of discipline in your mind. Too many people believe discipline belongs to a chosen few, as if some people were born with it and others were not. That is a lie. The truth is, discipline is forged in the fire of daily decisions. It's created every time you push yourself to do what you said you would do, especially when you don't feel like it. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't that one group is luckier or smarter. It's that one group trains themselves to keep showing up no matter what think about it. When you first start exercising, your muscles feel weak, heavy, untrained. The weights feel impossible to lift, but you keep going, and over time those same muscles adapt, grow, and become stronger. Discipline works the exact same way. At first, It feels uncomfortable, even painful, to force yourself into routines, to stick to commitments, to resist the temptation of comfort. But as you repeat the process, your tolerance for discomfort grows. Your ability to follow through sharpens. Eventually, you reach a point where acting with discipline feels more natural than giving in to excuses. That transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it happens every single time you practice discipline deliberately, consistently, and intentionally. The problem most people face is they wait for discipline to magically appear in their lives. They think if they read enough motivational quotes, watch enough inspiring videos, or wait until the timing feels perfect, discipline will suddenly be there. But discipline doesn't come to you. You build it. You have to treat it as a daily workout for your brain. Every morning you have a choice. You can strengthen the muscle of discipline, or you can weaken it by letting your impulses and emotions run the show. Each decision either strengthens or breaks you down, and your life is nothing more than the sum of those daily choices. Training discipline starts with something simple. You don't need massive changes at once. Start small, make your bed every morning. Finish the workout you promised yourself. Stick to the diet plan for one more day. Write down the tasks you said you'd do and don't stop until they're completed. These small actions don't just give you results, they condition your brain. They create a standard inside you. Over time, your brain starts associating discomfort with growth, challenge with progress, commitment with pride. You begin to build a pattern, and that pattern hardwires into your identity. Suddenly, discipline doesn't feel like something you're forcing. It feels like who you are. It's important to remember that discipline and motivation are not the same thing. Motivation is a spark, a temporary feeling that comes and goes. But discipline is the engine that keeps moving even when the spark dies out. If you rely on motivation, you'll quit as soon as you feel tired or distracted. But if you train discipline, you can operate at a higher level regardless of your emotions. You may not always feel excited to wake up early, to put in the work, to do what others won't do, but discipline makes you act anyway. And it's in those moments when you don't feel like it, but you do it anyway, that the muscle of discipline grows the most. The more you practice, the stronger it becomes, and just like the gym, consistency is everything. One workout won't transform your body, and one act of discipline won't transform your life. But repeated acts, day after day, week after week, compound into results that cannot be ignored. Suddenly, you look back and realize you've become a different person. Someone who doesn't quit, someone who doesn't procrastinate, someone who can trust themselves to follow through. That's the true power of discipline, not just in what you accomplish, but in who you become through the process. Your brain is your servant, not your master, and the moment you understand this truth, everything changes. Most people live their lives enslaved to their thoughts, their cravings, and their impulses, believing that whatever pops into their head is who they are. They let the brain dictate their actions, telling them when to wake up, when to quit, when to indulge, when to put things off until tomorrow. But the reality is your brain was designed to follow your commands, to serve your decisions, and to execute the vision you create for your life. The challenge is that if you don't train it, if you don't condition it, the brain will default to the path of least resistance, which means comfort, safety, and mediocrity. And if you're serious about growth, you can't allow that to happen. Think about the way your brain is wired. Its number one priority is survival, not success. It wants to keep you safe, conserve energy, and avoid risk, which is why it constantly whispers things like rest a little longer, eat that food, skip the workout, you'll start tomorrow. Those are not commands you're supposed to obey. They are signals you are supposed to override. Your brain is like a wild horse, powerful, full of energy, capable of extraordinary things, but without training, it will run you into the ground. Discipline is the reins you use to take control of that horse and direct it toward the destination you choose. Without those reins, you're at the mercy of instinct, and instinct rarely leads to greatness. When you train your brain to become your servant, you stop negotiating with excuses. You stop entertaining every thought as if it deserves attention. Just because your brain tells you to hit snooze doesn't mean you have to listen. Just because it tells you to procrastinate doesn't mean you obey. You are the one in charge, and discipline is how you enforce that authority. The brain, like a muscle, becomes conditioned to repetition. If you repeatedly allow it to dictate your actions, it grows stronger in laziness and avoidance. But if you repeatedly train it to follow through on your decisions, it grows stronger in focus, resilience, and execution. Your patterns are training your brain whether you realize it or not. And the results you see in life are simply the reflection of what you've been conditioning daily. There is a dangerous misconception that discipline means denying yourself joy or becoming rigid and robotic. But true discipline is about teaching your brain to obey the higher version of you, not the impulsive version. The brain that says, eat the junk food, is thinking short-term pleasure. The disciplined brain says, I fuel my body for strength and vitality. The brain that says, skip the gym, is focused on avoiding discomfort. The disciplined brain says, I embrace the challenge because I know it transforms me. Every moment of choice is a battle between the servant and the master. If you let the servant dictate, your life shrinks to the size of your impulses. If you assert yourself as the master, your life expands to the size of your vision. Training your brain requires repetition and clarity. You can't be vague with commands and expect obedience. If you say, I'll try to work out tomorrow, your brain has room to negotiate. But when you say, I train at 6 a.m., every day, no exceptions, the command is absolute, and over time your brain learns to accept it as reality. This is how habits are built, by giving your brain no other option but to obey. At first, it resists because it craves comfort, but eventually it adapts. It begins to align with your identity. It begins to believe, this is who we are now. And once your brain accepts a new identity, discipline becomes less about effort and more about expression. You have to treat your brain like an athlete treats the body. Feed it the right information, train it with the right rituals, push it past its limits, and reward it for progress. When you discipline your brain, you teach it to serve you with focus instead of distraction, consistency instead of chaos, determination instead of hesitation. You build the mental circuits of resilience by showing up every day and keeping promises to yourself. And each time you assert mastery over your brain, you weaken the grip of fear, doubt, and laziness. Slowly but surely, the servant learns its place and the master takes control. Rituals and consistent actions rewire your identity because every single behavior you repeat becomes a message to your subconscious about who you are. Most people underestimate the power of rituals. They think small daily actions don't matter, but the truth is your identity is built on what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally dream about. You don't become disciplined by thinking about discipline. You become disciplined by creating rituals that you follow no matter how you feel. When you wake up early every day and start with a purposeful action, you send a signal to your brain that you are someone who takes control. When you follow through on the promises you make to yourself, you reinforce the belief that your word means something. Over time, these repeated actions hardwire into your nervous system and they no longer feel forced, they feel natural. What once required effort becomes your new standard, and your identity rises to meet it. Think about the difference between someone who says, I want to get fit, versus someone who says, I am an athlete. The first person might start and stop because their identity hasn't shifted. They still see fitness as something external they're chasing. The second person behaves in alignment with who they believe they are. They don't question whether they'll work out or eat clean. It's simply what they do because it's who they are. Rituals are the bridge that carry you from who you are now to who you want to become. And consistency is the cement that locks that bridge in place. If you only act when you feel inspired, you'll never rewire your identity. But when you act consistently, regardless of mood, You train your brain to see discipline as a core part of your character. The challenge is that most people start rituals with intensity, but no consistency. They work hard for a week, then fall off. They promise themselves big changes but can't sustain them because their brain hasn't adapted to the new standard yet. True transformation comes not from massive effort once in a while, but from small, repeated actions that compound over time. Your rituals are like drops of water carving a groove into stone. At first, it looks like nothing is happening, but as you stay consistent, the groove deepens until it becomes the natural path for the water to flow. This is exactly how the brain works. Neurons that fire together wire together. Every time you practice a ritual, you strengthen that pathway until it becomes automatic. That's how identity is rewired, for example. If you ritualize waking up early, your brain begins to associate early mornings with clarity, focus, and productivity. If you ritualize exercise, your brain connects physical movement with energy and strength. If you ritualize studying, reading, or working on your craft, your brain identifies you as someone who grows, someone who improves daily. Over time, you stop having to force yourself because the identity of "I am the type of person who does this" has taken root. That's why rituals are more powerful than goals. Goals are something you reach once. Rituals are something you live every day. Goals might change, but rituals define your character. The other key is consistency. Without consistency, rituals have no power. It's not about doing it perfectly every time. It's about showing up again and again until it becomes ingrained. Consistency is what transforms discipline from effort into habit, from habit into identity. When you consistently act in alignment with the person you want to become, your brain starts to believe it. The subconscious mind doesn't care about what you say you want. It only responds to what you consistently do. If you consistently quit, your brain adopts the identity of a quitter. If you consistently finish, your brain adopts the identity of a finisher. The wiring is always happening, whether you realize it or not. And consistency is the deciding factor of which identity gets wired. Rituals are not glamorous. They are not dramatic. And that's why so many people overlook them. But greatness is never built on dramatic single moments. It is built on the quiet repetition of small, intentional actions. Waking up at the same time, practicing gratitude, writing your goals, following a schedule, honoring commitments. These may look ordinary, but they create extraordinary results because they are the tools that carve your identity into something unshakable. When rituals are consistent, they create momentum. Momentum shifts your belief. Belief rewires your identity, and identity dictates your destiny. Discipline creates freedom, not restriction, and the moment you realize this truth, the way you see discipline will completely transform. Most people resist discipline because they see it as something that takes away their options, their pleasures, or their comfort. They see discipline as a prison, as a cage that locks them away from the life they want to enjoy. But the reality is the opposite. Lack of discipline is the real prison. Lack of discipline chains you to your impulses, to your weaknesses, to your habits that keep you stuck. Discipline, on the other hand, is the master key that unlocks freedom in every area of your life. When you practice discipline, you are not punishing yourself. You are liberating yourself. Think about your health. Without discipline, you eat whatever you feel like, whenever you feel like it, and you convince yourself that you are free. But where does that lead? It leads to fatigue, sickness, low energy, and a body that holds you back from living fully. Discipline with your health means you eat with purpose, you train your body, you rest properly, and as a result, you create the freedom to move with energy, to feel strong, to live longer, and to experience life without being limited by your own body. That is freedom. It's not restriction to say no to unhealthy choices. It's power to say yes to the life those choices give you access to. The same is true with money. Without discipline, you spend recklessly. You chase instant gratification. You live for today with no thought of tomorrow. It feels free in the moment, but soon you're trapped in debt, chained to stress and enslaved by financial limitations. With discipline, you budget, you save, you invest, you live below your means, and you create the freedom to travel, to give, to provide, to live on your own terms without fear of scarcity. That is the freedom only discipline can buy. Discipline may feel like sacrifice in the moment, but every sacrifice is an investment in long-term freedom. Discipline also creates freedom in your mind. Without it, your mind is scattered, pulled in 1,000 directions by distractions, social media, endless entertainment, and constant noise. You may think you are free because you can do anything, but the truth is you can't focus on one thing long enough to master it. You are enslaved to distraction, but with discipline you control your focus. You decide where your attention goes. You give your energy to what matters most, and when you can focus deeply, you create mastery, and mastery always creates freedom. The artist disciplined in their craft has the freedom to express. The athlete disciplined in their training has the freedom to perform. The entrepreneur disciplined in their vision has the freedom to build without limitation. Freedom is born from discipline, not from chaos. Look at relationships too. Without discipline, you say whatever you want, you act on every emotion, you don't listen, you don't invest, you don't show up with consistency. And what happens? Broken trust, broken bonds, shallow connections. But discipline in relationships means you listen when it's hard. You control your emotions when you want to lash out. You commit to showing up even when you don't feel like it. That discipline builds trust, and trust creates the freedom to love without fear, to grow together, to know you are safe with someone who is consistent. Discipline strengthens relationships, and strong relationships are one of the greatest forms of freedom. The illusion of freedom without discipline is the biggest trap people fall into. They think saying yes to everything makes them free, but in reality, every yes without discipline ties them down further. Every indulgence, every distraction, every moment of weakness adds another link to the chain. True freedom is being able to say no when you need to, being able to control yourself, being able to make choices that serve your future rather than sabotage it. The ability to choose your long-term good over short-term comfort is the highest form of freedom. A person can have. Discipline also creates freedom of identity. Without it, you're a prisoner to your moods and feelings. You never know which version of yourself will show up, the lazy one, the inconsistent one, the doubtful one. But with discipline, you become reliable to yourself. You trust yourself to follow through. You know who you are because you've trained yourself to show up consistently with strength. And that gives you the freedom to build confidence that no one can take away. Freedom isn't about doing whatever you want whenever you want. It's about being in control of yourself, so nothing outside of you can control you. That is the highest power discipline gives you. Discipline compounds. Small wins lead to unstoppable momentum. And this is one of the most powerful truths you can ever apply to your life. Most people underestimate the value of small daily actions because they don't see immediate results. They look at someone successful and believe it was one massive breakthrough or one big opportunity that changed everything. But what they fail to realize is that behind every breakthrough are countless small acts of discipline stacked on top of each other. Discipline doesn't just add up, it multiplies. Each small win strengthens your confidence, your identity, and your momentum. And as those wins build on each other, they create a force so powerful that it becomes almost impossible to stop. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's small, slow, and barely noticeable. But with every roll, it picks up more snow, more speed, and more weight. Soon it becomes massive, unstoppable, and impossible to ignore. That is exactly how discipline works. Waking up on time one day might feel insignificant. Finishing one workout might not look like a big deal. Saying no to one temptation might seem trivial. But when you string those actions together over weeks, months, and years, They build a momentum that transforms your entire life. The compound effect of discipline is invisible at first, but once it takes hold, it makes you unstoppable. The problem is most people quit before the momentum kicks in. They underestimate the power of the small wins, so when they don't see instant results, they give up. They don't realize that every disciplined action is like placing a brick, and the wall of success is only built when those bricks are stacked consistently over time. The person who lays one brick a day might not see progress for weeks, but eventually the structure begins to rise. And once it rises, it becomes a fortress. That fortress is the life created by compounded discipline. The truth is, the results you're living with today are the compound effect of your past disciplines or your past neglects. Every choice matters, every action counts, and every win adds to the momentum. Your building momentum is a powerful force because once it's on your side, discipline becomes easier. At the beginning, discipline feels like climbing uphill with a heavy load, but the more consistent you are, the lighter the load feels and the faster you move. Eventually, momentum flips the equation. What was once hard becomes automatic. What once felt forced becomes natural, and what once required massive willpower becomes part of your identity. You no longer have to fight yourself as much because your past discipline has created an energy that pulls you forward. That's the beauty of compounding. You put an effort up front, and then the effort starts working for you. Think about how this shows up in fitness. The first workout is the hardest. The first week feels brutal. The results are invisible, and it feels like nothing is changing. But as you stay disciplined, your body adapts. Your strength increases, your endurance grows, and suddenly workouts that once crushed you become easy. Then you push harder, and the results accelerate. The same is true with business, with learning, with relationships. The small acts of discipline, making the calls, reading the books, having the difficult conversations, practicing your skills. At first they look small, but as they stack, they compound into exponential growth. The discipline you practice today is not just about the action itself. It's about the momentum it creates for tomorrow. Discipline compounds in your identity too. Every time you follow through, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. That proof builds confidence, and confidence fuels more action. Each small win says to your subconscious, "This is who I am now." And the more wins you stack, the stronger that identity becomes. Soon you don't just practice discipline, you embody it. You no longer think, "I need to force myself to be consistent." Instead, you believe, "I am consistent, I am disciplined, I am relentless." That identity carries momentum, and momentum makes you unstoppable. This is why you must celebrate the small wins. Too often, people dismiss them as meaningless because they don't look dramatic enough. But the small wins are the foundation of everything. Waking up on time, sticking to your plan for one more day, finishing a task you wanted to avoid, resisting one temptation. Each of these wins compounds, and each of them adds energy to your momentum. What looks small today creates something massive tomorrow. The choice is simple. Either you let small disciplines compound into greatness, or you let small neglects compound into regret. One way or another, compounding is always happening, and the direction depends entirely on your daily actions.